99.9% of the population has retirement all wrong. Do you know why? We have made retirement an age. You know what I'm talking about? Retirement is when we turn 60 or 65 or 70. That's when we can retire. In other words, that's when we can go off and live our bucket list. We can take our time back, and at that point, our money starts to work for us, and we start taking money from our magic retirement account. But that isn't exactly how it has to be. That's just what we've been taught to conform to, an age. But retirement is not about an age, it's about cash flow. It's about when your money can work for you at a velocity that is equal to the money you make working for it. Because right now we trade time for money. And until your money can work for you and make the same amount as you do now, you can't retire. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode. My name's Chris Naugle, and this is What Now? What's next for your retirement? So let's dive into the discussion about retirement. Hannah, retirement. What does that mean to you?
To me personally,
Yes.
it means when my cash flow exceeds my expenses, that I can officially not have to worry about paying my bills because my little green men are working for me.
So in other words, the way you look at retirement is not an age.
Not an age.
So you don't think of it as, I'm going to retire when I'm 60 because then you can access your 401k, or 62 or 65 because that's when you can start taking Social Security?
Not at all.
And you don't have a pension plan, do you?
No, nothing.
So you're kind of completely unplugged from the traditional retirement thought process.
I am. I've never had a normal W-2 job. I mean, really, I've only had 3 occupations within my lifetime: chiropractic office, Cracker Barrel, and then getting into this business with my father, working on the application team and really being a 1099 individual. So from there, I've never had like a traditional 401k or these other qualified accounts.
Well, I think most of the folks listening to this are completely the opposite of you. I mean, like me, I remember when I was a kid, I remember my grandma sitting me down. This is when I was starting to get into the workforce. My grandma said, listen, when you start looking for jobs, ask them, do they have a retirement account? Okay, so I'm like, okay. I really didn't know what that meant, but I think I maybe had an idea. So I wrote it down. And then she said, and when they say that they do, ask them if they match. And she had this big grin. My grandma was this Italian woman with this giant grin. I'm like, okay, Graham, match. Grandma, what's a match? She said, it's free money they give you. And I'm like, ooh, I like free money. Circle match. And so when I went and interviewed in the financial companies that I ended up spending 16 years at, that was the questions. They said, do you have a retirement account? Yes, we do. I'm like, check. Grandma said, that's one. And then the big question was, do you have a match? And they did. They matched 3% dollar for dollar. Actually, correction, 4% dollar for dollar, which later I learned was because of Safe Harbor, but that's not for today. So I'm like, check. Right there, I'm ready. I'm ready. If I get this job, I'm all in because they're giving me a retirement. And not only that, that company provided a pension plan, which I know today DB plans are kind of a thing of the past. But, if you're a federal employee, you work for the state, and maybe the odd public company, you get a pension. But all of those things that I just mentioned, that some of the folks that were listening were just like, oh yeah, my grandma said the same thing, or my parents said the same thing. They get excited about that. But there's a little caveat that comes along with all of those things that I mentioned, because all of those qualify as what we call qualified retirement accounts, which comes along with an age, 60 years old. Well, it's 59 and a half, but let's just round up. 59 and a half years old. What does that mean to you?
When I got to reach the age 59 and a half, it means a long time in the freaking future.
Does.
I don't know what I'm going to be doing at 59 and a half. And actually, there's even some companies that they force you to put the money in that 401k. Like my younger brother, who's a pilot at a charter company, no ifs, ands, or buts, he's required and forced to put that money into that account. And what's funny is that we've actually had the opposite experience where my dad says, hey, if they offer you this 401k, don't do it. I do not want you to do it. Isn't that kind of funny?
That is funny. And I guess maybe I'm kind of a little bit on both sides. I have money in qualified retirement plans because obviously I started where they had one. So when I left the financial world, I rolled my 401k into a self-directed IRA And then I also have a pension, which I obviously get the statements. So I'm kind of still plugged in. And even to this day, at the end of the year, my CPA tells me, hey, here's your tax liability. And hey, we need to make a contribution next year, because you have until the following year to make a contribution into your SEP IRA, which is a simplified employee pension or employer pension plan. So me and my wife have SEPs. So we listen to the CPA and we write a check and that money goes in. Now that is 100% a tax play, because I put them into self-directed IRAs, which then I lend that money out on Private Money Club and do various other things. That's not for today. But for the majority of the people out there, they're putting money in a 401k, which means retirement is and always will be an age.
Yeah.
But that is not what retirement was meant to be. Matter of fact, Ted Benna, the founder of the 401k, said in his book that isn't what 401ks were supposed to be. 401ks were set up to be a supplementary retirement account, which means they were not primary. They were to benefit the defined benefit pension plans and just be a supplement to them. Now I know DBs kind of went away, so now 401ks became the primary, but all that means is that people are going to work their entire life, and then when that age comes, then they can retire. But you know the problem with that, right?
Plus what?
People don't have enough money to retire.
Not at all. As cost of living goes up, inflation goes up, everything just keeps getting more and more expensive. Even in my generation, coming from Gen Z, there's a girl that just posted on Facebook like 2 months ago. I remember reading it on one Sunday night. I was sitting on the couch watching my Game of Thrones, okay? Because I'm really deep into that series right now. And I was just scrolling and she says, oh my gosh, I'm going to school. I'm working 3 jobs and I still can't afford to put a roof over my head and food on the table. Now, given she lives in a very, a place where the cost of living is very high, okay? But still, I mean, do you really think that she's having retirement be on the forefront of her mind when she's trying to still put this food on the table? It's expensive to live nowadays. And so just the monies that we're taking and putting into those retirement accounts, a lot of those monies could be used today, and people need that money today as well. But not to pivot on you, but...
No, you're right. You're talking about a younger generation who just barely is working just to afford to live.
That's right.
So then when you go into, the silent generation, which is, our grandparents, and then, just the baby boomers and even my generation, Gen X, like if you look at statistics, actually, matter of fact, right here, check these numbers out. These are the averages that people have in 401ks. Now look at these numbers, Hannah. You know math. No one's going to be able to retire and live the rest of their life on that. It's just not enough money. I mean, even back in the day where they said, once you save $1 million, you got enough to retire. So $1 million, just for every one of you listening to this, $1 million is going to give you $40,000 a year. Who can live on $40,000 a year?
I can't even.
Now, maybe if it's a husband and wife, okay, 40 and 40, that's 80 grand. But if they take more, and most people, where they'll make the mistake is they'll start drawing more money out of their 401ks than the 4% rule, and they'll eventually run out of money, and then it becomes somebody else's problem, or at least that's what they say. Oh, this will be my kid's problem, or this will be somebody else's, or we'll figure it out then, which means what? Going back to work.
Oh, that it falls on exactly their children, or they do go back to work. My dad always brings up the topic of, that greeter at Walmart who's checking your receipts, or at Costco, Sam's Club, wherever it is. Most of those people are of retirement age. And he's always said, hey, I want to go around and do almost like a survey and ask them, are you here at retirement age because you want to be? You enjoy it, you want to get out of the house, go do something with your day? Or are you here because you need to be for survival because your retirement plan didn't pan out how you thought it would?
Tell your dad to save the time. No more survey needed. It's because they have to.
Yes, they have to.
That's the sad. It is.
And I think about that. I was even like in the Chick-fil-A drive-thru not too long ago, and a lady of retirement age comes out of the back door, and I thought that same thing to myself. Is she really here because she wants to be, or does she need to be here? But I think about that almost every single day of my life, and that's why I just have a big passion that time is the only resource that we cannot get back. You can always create more money. You can create more items, but you can never take back the time that is happening within your life. And I don't want people to be dictated whether they have the money for retirement or even be a burden to their family because, hey, honey, hey, son and daughter, I got to come and move in with you guys because, you know, my retirement plan, it's not working out and I just can't pay the mortgage or pay the rent of where I'm staying at right now. And then it gets into a whole other conversation that we can do some other filming about, which is like the cost of just, you know, when our health starts to decline and needing the assisted living and the medical aspect when we get into those later stages. My Nana, who's almost 90 years old, Papa, who's 92, they have to have full-time staff come in over $10,000 a month just paying for that. They probably didn't factor that into their retirement planning either. You know?
No, and a lot of people aren't going to factor that in because they're just going to say, oh, it's the state or the government will take care of me. But they don't quite understand how Medicare or Medicaid works. And in order for the government, the federal government, to take care of you, you have to spend down to a poverty level, which means any type of legacy you want to leave to your kids, gone. But we're just going down a rabbit hole about these things. These are so many things that people don't talk about because they don't want to face the reality. They don't want to face the music because the truth hurts. But the whole idea here, the broken part about everything we're talking about is nothing about whether people can or cannot retire with enough money or the age. It's our mentality around retirement is completely wrong. It is not an age. Retirement is simply a cash flow problem. It is when our money can work at a velocity that supports our standard of living, period. Is that $1 million, $2 million, $5 million? And some people are like, I'll never have that much money in my life. If somebody says that, that means they won't. Like if somebody said, I'll never have $5 million in my life, well, your thoughts are things, and that means you really won't because you don't think you can, and you're not willing to accept the fact that you can have anything you want. Now, we're not going to get all foo-foo into Earl Nightingale or any of that stuff. But yeah, no, but basically the fact of the matter is we've got to change our mindset around money and our mindset around retirement and realize that retirement can be anything anyone wants it to be, but you got to start working toward it. And that's where people can't, because obviously, like you mentioned, cost of living and everything else has gone up. But how do you save money? And then everybody says, okay, well, my employer gives a match. I agree. And this is maybe where we differ. I think people should put into a qualified retirement plan up to the match, but not a penny more. Because listen, if the company will give you dollar for dollar up to 4%, put in 4%. Get that free money. Get past that vesting period, which is usually like a 6-year, 7-year cliff vesting. Get over that, and that is free money. But don't just rely on that for your retirement because you'll never have enough. You got to start saving money. The law number 1 of wealth is keep 10% of what you make. But how can people keep money when they're barely able to put, food on the table and a roof over their head? I mean, that's the real dilemma here.
I know. And I think it then gets into the different habits. Sometimes you got to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to take some sacrifices for right now so that you can get into that next phase of your life. I think if they really do hone in on where the spending is going, having the honest conversation.
You mean a budget?
Oh, a budget.
All right, this is a really important time. This is the time where you get to click that subscribe button. Hey, there's a little bell up top. What I also need you to do is I need you to smash that bell so you're notified every time I put up new content.
I don't know if you've been hearing about this, but I've been trying to find another word than budget here recently because sometimes people can think budget is like a chore.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
It's like work.
Yeah, it's like work. They still want to do it, right? But they do. They got to follow this budget. That's why I talk about rocket money all the time. You know that. And for me in my own personal life, that's how I keep control of my spending habits, my spending patterns. I'm like, ooh, girlfriend, you spent too much money at Publix this past week buying too many pub subs. Let's cut it out for a little bit, But I think it really starts there just with having to be honest, shifting the mentality. And then when you start to track the numbers and track your stats, because if you're not tracking it, you're basically just flying through a black box, right? I always heard of the joke. People think that if they have checks left on the counter, that they still have money in the bank. And that's probably not the truth. So when you really get honed in on just the cash flow of what you are actively doing in your spending habits of your life, and then you start to save and pay yourself first. See, I wouldn't even save. What I would do when you're tracking your cash flow of your income and your expenses, on the expenses side, the first thing that you should put there is pay myself first. And it should be the 10%, hopefully, that we can pay ourselves first, write that in as an expense line, and then label out all of your...
But most people listening to this would say there's no way I could afford to do that. but that's because they think they can't. I'll tell you how that works, because I've been right where you are, where you change that mentality and you change that top line to pay myself first. When you do that and you start saving money for you first before you pay anybody else, you know exactly what happens. The money just shows up because you made it a priority, because you all of a sudden made it happen. And maybe for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's difficult. After that, it becomes the norm. And you're like, well, that was no big deal. So then you increase the amount. Maybe they can't start at 10%, start at whatever dollar amount they can, and then keep working up to that. But that's what people don't do, because people just go into it with the negative mindset is, I can't. And words are powerful. If you say you can't, and you won't. You got to change your mindset around it. So one of the things I think that's really important about what we do with the infinite banking concept is it's a forced savings. So, whether somebody's putting money into the privatized banking to fund paying off debt, that's bringing money back that they were giving away. So when we talk about people living paycheck to paycheck, if we can get them to at least get started with saving that first step, that's going to then force them to take back the money they're giving away, which then perpetuates the ability for them to save. And then they can save more and more and more, because they don't have to work harder. They don't have to work longer, which they probably don't have any extra time, and they don't have to take on any risk. It just naturally is them taking money back because that's exactly what we teach. Then after they pay their debts off and they pay their car loans off, now they got a lot of freed up money that can then be saved for retirement. But it gets even better. So that's just like phase one about what we do and why it's so vital for someone's financial future, but not just future, but that magic retirement that is not an age, it's a freaking cash flow thing. We're creating cash flow. I don't want to say out of thin air, but we are out of thin air, because most people think this is money that's gone and I'm not getting it back because these are debts I'm paying. Now all that money comes back to them because they take back the banking function. Sorry, I'm getting all excited. Anyway, let me pause, because there's a second part to this that plays into the retirement that most people have been saving up to that point, because our average client is between 40 and 60. So, they're really thinking about retirement, but they're still stuck with that age in mind. But the other most important thing is when people get to that retirement age where they can start taking from their 401ks, this is a massive part. Their financial advisor is going to set up a structure, a distribution strategy, and they're going to start taking money from their qualified retirement plans, because I will, after 59 and a half. But what happens for some of these people if when they have to start taking distributions to live because they're ready to retire, now all of a sudden the market's going down, down, and down. The economy's slipping, or they're going into a recession. These folks still have to take money from their qualified retirement plans. So what they're doing is they're literally taking from a declining balance. They will never recover from this. And I don't know many financial advisors explaining this. So the other part is if we get them to start their own private banking system and use the infinite banking concept, they've got all this cash inside this guaranteed, specially designed high cash value whole life. Sorry, that's a mouthful. This whole life policy that then when the markets are going down and they need income, all they got to do is slide the distribution lever over to the whole life, take distributions from the guaranteed whole life, and let their investments ride through that market cycle. So now they don't have to deal with the drawdown, which will lessen their chance of losing money. This is called the volatility buffer. We did a whole YouTube video on this, and it was pretty high level, but it literally is the perfect solution for people maintaining and being able to continue through the retirement years without running out of money.
Well, and you actually make me think of, I remember it was during the times of COVID, it was, I'm going to call them the Y family, okay? And the Y family, they called me up one day, and they've been clients of mine since 2018 and 2019. And then, then we had that big pandemic of COVID. And they called me up and they said, Hannah, I totally should have listened to you, because I just let my money right out there in my 401k. And I just lost over $200,000 in that 401k. Do you know how many phone calls I got like that back in the COVID times? And still people are trying to replenish and build from that time. There's even stories, which I won't get into it, but just even people taking their entire life savings and maybe not having like a strategic financial vehicle like a 401k, a pension, TSP, etc. But they will take what they have, go down to the corner banker at the investment corner, give all of their money over to them, and then that banker just calls them up one day and says, hey, I regret to tell you this, but it's just not here anymore. It's gone. Your money is gone. And that was the...
Was that the Simpsons or Family Guy that was? He gave all the money. Oh, it's gone.
I hope it was a cartoon, but
It was a cartoon.
real life story. It was a guy in Camden, Missouri. You know, we go out there. He actually works at the, when we come in and we land the airplane, he was one of the linemen that would taxi you in, right? So, and he was of retirement age and he was there working because he had to, because the banker lost him all of his money. So it just comes back to who has control of your dollars? Is it you or somebody else? And when you're leaving your dollars up to the market or to other people to manage, in my opinion, nobody's going to care more about your financial life than what you do. And that's why it's so important that you got to take that control over your monetary life. Because as I say, if you're not going to do it, who else is going to do it for you, honey?
Well, hey, just for a little icebreaker, it was South Park. Let's roll that clip.
I got a $100 check from my grandma. Need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision. We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. And it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone. The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
What do you mean? I have $100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
So hopefully that got everybody to laugh a little bit. And it's gone. Well, with what we do, it can never be gone because the only thing the money can do is go up and be worth more next year and the year after and the year after. That's the beautiful word, guaranteed.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about whole life insurance with mutually owned insurance companies is that you have the best of the both worlds, is that you can use the money today and you can use it as well to supplement the income during the retirement years. Because I'll tell you, my retirement plan is to use my policies, max them out as much as I can, start additional policies year after year. I'm buying one new policy like every 24 months myself. And then from there, using the cash values to go buy my investments, that creates me passive income streams. So then comes the time of retirement. I got my policies that I can take tax-free, whether it be loans or distributions, like withdrawals from them. And that can supplement my income plus the cash flow that I have coming from these investment deals that I'm doing. So marrying those two together, I'm in total control of it and I'm not leaving it up to what I always say, these external factors like the market that we simply cannot dictate. And I think that's why you and Chris, we love just even real estate so much as an asset class, because you can really mitigate and kind of assess the risks that you're taking on by walking into a real estate investment deal.
You know, you mentioned tax-free, and I know you just had a conversation with Carson Herling, one of our money mentors, and he was talking to you about Roth IRAs. So when I was a financial advisor, Roths were like the almighty. It's one of those vehicles that we love talking about because everybody wanted to stick it to the man and not pay tax. Because, you know, when you run the numbers for somebody on a regular 401k and you show them, all right, here's how much money you're going to have, here's the distributions, here's the taxes, they're like, holy crap. And I'm like, well, you took the pre-tax deduction on the money when you were doing it, so now you got to pay the piper. But Roth IRAs, you put after-tax dollars in, just like the policies, and you take all the money out tax-free, just like the policies. So talk a little bit about that conversation you and Carson had.
Yeah. So Carson, we hung out in Croatia together, and we had our same bus ride back to the airport before I went to Istanbul. He went back home. He had a 14-hour flight. Can we talk about that?
Ouch.
And yeah, 14 hours is a long time to be on an airplane. But when we were going to the airport, we were just kind of chit-chatting because I'll just be real. I'm not very happy with my tax person right now. I'm kind of going through this wave of trying to find some new tax people. And I was just asking Carson, you know, what are you doing? What depreciation are you taking? What are you doing in your investment lifestyle, right? And I brought up, because I know Carson's father owns a self-directed IRA company. And so I said, Carson, you know, I have this colleague on my team, and he's just always telling me, Hannah, you should at least just at your age, start a Roth. Just start a Roth and just start putting that $7,000 contributions into it. And I asked Carson, I said, Carson, no one has just ever told me why the Roth is better than what I'm doing with my policies. Is there a pro of that I should be doing this? And he says, you know what? Honestly, it could make sense, but the thing is that there's limitations to how much you can put into that Roth, and it's going to be a very long-term play. Because yeah, it'd be kind of cool if you could self-direct that Roth into like a private lending deal and create tax-free income through that Roth. But if you kind of weigh out the time value of the money and what you're doing right now, putting away the money and then having to wait so many X years into the future until you have like a $50,000 cash bucket to then go take out that money and then go place it into the investment deal. You know, what really is like does it really truly make sense? And so honestly, I've never sat down, run the numbers. I've always just kind of been sticking to what I've been actively doing with my policies and my lending deals right now, because I'm always of the mindset that, hey, my money is worth more today than what it is going to be in the future. So I want to use my good dollars today. But it was just kind of something like me being 25 years old, you know, hey, does it make sense to put dollars into a Roth and then in the future do lending deals, create some tax-free income from that? I don't know, because then could I do the same thing with my tax side and have a good tax person to help me? I don't know, because I haven't found a good tax person quite yet. So anyways, that's what's going on in my life.
Well, hopefully your good tax person would kind of break the news to what I'm going to tell you is you wouldn't be able to put money into a Roth. And Carson, I'm sure he had money in a Roth, but he can no longer fund because of the phase-out limit. So here's the numbers, and I'll put them up on the screen for all of you. 2025, the Roth IRA phase-out range for a single filer, which would be you, is between $150,000 and $165,000. So do you make more than that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't put money into a Roth. But hold on. There are people who are married, like Carson. Carson's married. So jointly, it's between $236,000 and $246,000. Now, you know what Carson makes. Does he make more than that? He does. So he can't put money in a Roth. So folks, if any of you are listening, if you make more than those phase outs, you are not permitted to put money into a Roth IRA. So what are you going to do if you want tax-free income? Hannah, what should they do?
I think put money into the policies.
Yeah, start the infinite banking concepts and build your own private banking system. Start taking back the banking functions in your life. That would be a great starting place, because then not only are we saving money that can be used tax-free down the line, but we can use that money and the process to take back the money you're giving away. Control those banking functions. Stop giving all that interest to the banks on those car loans, those credit cards, those home equity lines. Let's start keeping all of that money. And you know what? This whole retirement game that we're playing, this fictitious numbers game and age game, wouldn't be a thing, because if we didn't have to give all the money in interest on all the loans that we're doing, I bet you a lot of people would be able to retire right now. And if they were able to retire right now because they're not giving all their money away, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no restrictions of age when it comes to the policies, because there is no 59 and a half. It's whenever you want to start taking the money. So I remember back when I was an advisor, we had this strategy called SLRP. And I know we'll finish on this because I'm going off on a rant. Love this stuff. But it was called SLRP, Supplemental Life Insurance Retirement Planning. So on top of all the other retirement stuff we had, we'd model a whole life policy. And this is before I knew how to especially design them. So this was just an off-the-shelf whole life. We'd model them so that at retirement, this person would be able to retire 10 years earlier. We had a lot of people that wanted to retire at 50, not 60, but all their money was in qualified retirement plans. So we'd build a 10-year income stream using a 10-pay whole life. And then when they hit that, and it was guaranteed, because like the numbers were going to be the numbers. We didn't have to guess. It wasn't like, well, if the market performs and gives you 7, you're going to be able 10 of this. And, you know, it was just like, here's what it's going to be. Boring. But then they knew at 50, they'd start drawing a tax-free income from their policy. We would take withdrawals up to the basis, the cost basis, and then we'd flip to loans, and that would get them to the 10 years. After the 10th year, then they'd start drawing from their retirement accounts, and then that would still act as a volatility buffer because they still had cash value, and then that would support them if the markets ever went down. But now all of a sudden they got 10 years of time back. Let me ask all of you watching this right now, and I want you to comment below. What would you do if you had an extra 10 years of freedom where you didn't have to work? Would you do your perfect day? Would you live your perfect day every day? Would you do all the things you've always dreamt about doing in those 20 or 30 years of working, trading hours for dollars? What would you do if you got 10 years of your life back? How much would you pay for that? What if you didn't have to pay? What if all you had to do is change one thing and add one step to what you're doing now? That's all it is, right? Change one thing and add one step, and these folks could get 10 years of their life back. We used to do this all the time.
And see, but it's guarantees, it's certain. I know when I'm looking to place my wealth or just even my mindset of how I think about things, I want them to be in guaranteed asset classes, not out there that's going to go up and down, right? And I think that's a big point that people miss, is that people just keep going back, well, I can get higher rates of return if I go do this. You know,
Those are the people that lose all their money.
that's right. That's what I call the broke-ass brother-in-laws, right?
Yeah, well, there's lots of them.
Hey, I want to tell you this. Did you hear about that story of that gentleman who, I want to say he was from Oregon? He closed out his 401k and he bought a sailboat and now he's sailing to Hawaii with his cat.
Happy cat.
Did you hear about that?
No?
I've been following his adventure on Instagram. He just got an article on CNN, I want to say it was. It's CNN or ABC, but it's pretty cool. He says, hey, I don't want to work this corporate 9-to-5 job. I'm going to cash out my 401k. I'm hitting I always say the open road because I like that van life. I'm going to hit the open sea and I'm just going to go live my life. And that's what he's doing.
Good for him.
And I want people to live life like that.
I don't think just closing out your 401k is going to enable you to live like that. You must have had a pretty big 401k because listen, let's not forget, it's not just about closing out the 401k or anything like that, guy. It's about your money working for you. You got to change the focus from you working for money to your money working for you. And that's exactly what we're trying to teach you how to do here on this episode. And I want to close it out. One final thing. If you could give one piece of advice to all these people watching this, what would it be?
One piece of advice. You know, I think about you a lot when you always say, give your best stuff away for free. But honestly, when people ask me that question, the number one thing that comes to my mind is serve and help other people. And it goes to what my family has always taught me at a very young age. It's a Zig Ziglar quote. If you help enough people get what they want, you in return will get what you want. So just take the time. I would even slow down a little bit because, y'all, I've been going through this very big phase right now of just taking time, slowing down. If you tune into my podcast episode, the Money Multiplier podcast, you know that I'm actually taking a quarter hiatus off of my show just to slow down, just be a little bit more present and just focus on the things that I wasn't spending a lot of my time on that should have been spent on. So instead of just going this everyday go, 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 go mentality, I think it's important just to take a step back, slow down, really just think a little bit before you kind of operate off of these half-baked ideas, you know? So that's what I guess I would leave to your listeners.
Now, I just saw this statistic this morning, and I might have the numbers off of it, but it really hit home for me. It said that 90% of the lowest income earners buy 90% of the lottery tickets.
Well,
10% of the wealthiest people control 90% of the U.S. stocks.
yeah.
Or I shouldn't say control, own 90%. Like, think about that. That's a mindset issue. That isn't a material problem. That's a mindset issue. So folks, we're going to wrap this episode with my favorite quote, and it is from Will Rogers. And he said, the biggest problem in America is not what people don't know. He said, the biggest problem in America is what people think they know that just ain't so. My name's Chris Naugle. Thanks for joining us for this episode of What Now? What's next for your retirement?
You guys are still here? Hey, thanks for watching. Hey, by the way, check this video out if you like the one you just saw. I think you'll really like it. See you next time.